It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
This was a weekend where I was catching up on trades again. So I got to read the third trade of Baltimore, which will come up later. Anyway, that's a little foreshadowing there. The third trade of Postal, and that Fafhrd and Grey Mouser trade that came out that Dark Horse put out last year. I forget. Now I feel stupid for saying the wrong thing. It was Dark Horse, yes. I had to double check. So I've been reading some kind of dark stuff again lately, apparently. But
woohoo!
That's okay. It's the fun stuff, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
That Fritz Lieber stuff is really good.
It is, and it was funny because I went to put it into Goodreads, because I usually do. And man, the reviews in Goodreads are really mediocre for that book. And I'm like, really? I admit I'm a Fafhrd and Grey Mouser fan, but I like the stuff in that book. I thought it was very fitting for a bunch of what are essentially little short stories. I thought it all worked pretty well, but I don't know. I think they get kind of a bad rap at this point. I think they were better received in like the 60s and 70s when they were written than they have been today. I don't know that they've aged all that well, but I don't know. I still like them.
They were good fantasy, and that's what they were shooting for.
Right, and it's
at that time that was top notch.
Right, and it wasn't intended to be really deep stuff. It's a little swords and sorcery and just some witty banter, and that's really all it was ever meant to be. And I don't know, some people really, really don't like them, but I do.
Alrighty, how about you, Les?
I've been reading some more Doc Savage, and I also found a movie on Showtime recently, and it's named All Things Must Pass, I believe. It is a documentary by Colin Hanks about Tower Records and the rise and fall of Tower Records. And I found it fascinating because this was an item that started in the late 60s, early 70s. I think it was 73, actually, that they started being known outside of Los Angeles, and how they expanded through the U.S. and into Japan, and how they were just the place to go find music. And growing up in Oklahoma City, a Tower Records did open up there, and the main competitor for them was the Sound Warehouse group, which is more known throughout the Texas-Oklahoma area.
Oh yeah, remember going there a lot of times.
A lot of times, and buying an album for under $5 and being excited about having new music available in mass quantities and cheap. The movie about Tower Records is really good. It's really well done, and they speak to the remaining owner, and his partners had passed, but to see them talk about this is really fun to take in some of their references I did not know what hand-cart fuel was, but they would buy hand-cart fuel. And the explanation of that is a substance, let's see, we'll put it this way, it's a substance ingested by a straw through the nose.
Okay.
And this was
powdery substance,
how
perhaps?
they would bill it. I'm sorry?
Is that powdery substance, perhaps?
Yeah. And this is what they would put on their bill. They would have their monthly report and have $375 spent for handcart fuel.
Wow. That's amazing.
Nice.
So I recommend it. If you can find it, it's well worth the time.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Did we have a Tower Records here back in the day? Do you remember? I could have swore we did, but I don't really remember going to it very often or anything.
If we did, there may have been one, and I don't know. Because, I mean, primarily it was Sound Warehouse or there used to be Camelot Music and Musicland back in the day, too. But I think there may have been one, but it may have been like one of the higher end malls, I think.
Oh, okay, that would make sense. Yeah, I would buy that because I could have swore because I remember we used to see commercials for them on TV, which wouldn't make sense if there wasn't one around.
Right.
So, yeah, I remember.
That's my thinking, but I may be wrong.
Yeah, since you bring up documentaries about music, I'll throw a bonus one in here. I watched a documentary on Netflix called The Winding Stream over the weekend, and it was about the Carter family, which is normally not the kind of music I go for, but it was a really cool documentary. They talked, I mean, because for those the brief background, the Carter family were in like rural Virginia, and they were the folks that essentially put country music on the map, especially like kind of a bluegrass style. And so, yeah, I mean, Johnny Cash married one of the daughters, June. She was like the youngest daughter, and I don't know if that really boosted the popularity or not. The original quote unquote Carter family band had long since quit recording at that point, but they had the guy AP Carter was single-handedly responsible for documenting just this huge catalog of music from like rural Virginia, and he would like travel to towns and just collect songs and then kind of tweak them and play with them and write them down, and so ended up getting writing credit for a lot of them, but including stuff he didn't necessarily really write. But anyway, that wasn't the point. The point was, but so it was just this hugely influential group, which, like I said, pretty much built country music from the ground up back in like the 30s and 40s. And so it was a really cool documentary because and individual members of the group and that family, other members of the family, went on being influential in the country music scene for another 50 years after that, or 60. And it's just, it was a pretty wide-reaching grasp, and so it was really cool to hear about.
The title I was trying to think of is All Things Must Pass. So if you get a chance, it's well worth the time.
Cool. Have to check that out.
What were you up to, Thomas?
Well, I guess I was the only one that was not watching a documentary.
About music specifically, apparently. Jeez.
No, I was catching up on reading. I actually recently just picked up a collection. It was put out by Hermes Press a while back, and it reprints the first 5. I don't know if there was more than 5, but it's definitely 5 here. issues of My Favorite Martian, which
Oh,
was based off the TV series with the Ray
Alston.
Walston, yeah, and Bill Bixby.
Wow. So
And we're looking at 60s. We're
yeah.
looking mid 60s. And this was put out. I think it was originally put out by Dell. I would have to go back and look. But they they got the picture covers, which is it's kind of a tradition. I guess it's still a tradition now. If we're because some of the books that come out now that are based off of TV or movie properties, there's usually a variant that's a photo variant. I know Titan does it for the Doctor Who's.
Well, the Three Stooges ones were doing it too, right?
Yeah, Three Stooges. I'm blanking right now. The Stargates, the variants are also photos. I'm sure they'll do that with Charm when Dynamite starts putting the new Charm book out.
Oh, probably.
But it was kind of interesting. The first issue, I think it was an adaptation of the pilot because I've seen the pilot before, and when I was reading it, I was like, I remember this, how Tim met the Martian, and it was due to the X-15 test flight, and Martin, as he became known,
Uncle
was
Martin.
Uncle Martin happened to be in orbit and was checking it out. But it was kind of a fun read. They obviously didn't have the rights to do likenesses of the actors because they were nowhere near close. But it was enough that where okay, who's who. But it's kind of fun.
Cool. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, I knew it had been out before, and I kind of contemplated on getting it, but I found it over at Half Price Books. I'm like, okay, for this price, yeah, I'll definitely get it. So.
Good old Half Price Books.
Mm-hmm.
How many issues did the book cover?
It covered 5 issues. I don't know how many was in the series, but there was 5 in the book.
Because if it was Dell or even Whitman, I can see them splitting it. Here's an issue of My Favorite Martian, and then next month is Tom and Jerry, and the next month is Huckleberry Hound, and it may go 5 or 6 issues before they get back to My Favorite Martian, rather than just a.
This was actually an actual ongoing. Because because I looked at the credits and it said it was issues 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this was an actual ongoing. It wasn't just a one shot and then hey, we'll go back later. But it was a fun read.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it was wacky 60s.
Uh-huh.
Lord knows we were wacky then.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we were.
We gave you titles like My Mother the Car and Camp Runamuck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not like we're not putting out that kind of stuff now. It's just a different type of wacky.
Right. Been a different style of title.
Mm-hmm. Because who knows, in about 3 or 4 years, probably not even that long, we'll look back and go, oh my God, this was actually on TV. We're actually doing that now. How is this on TV?
Or in some cases, how the hell has this been on TV for so long?
Yeah.
But anyway.
But that's a topic for another day. Maybe. We'll see. Speaking of topics, before we get into this week's show, Want to take a couple minutes to thank our sponsors for their support. First off, we'd like to say thank you to Make Mine Indie, the independent digital catalog, for their support. Winter catalog's out now, but spring's coming out March 21st, if I'm not mistaken. If you're not aware of this catalog, the current catalog's about 138 pages, and includes previews, reviews, and interviews for some books that, frankly, we were not aware of until this came along. So if you'd like to check it out, and you can go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Click on our sponsors tab. It'll take you to their site where you can download a free copy of the winter catalog. A lot of good stuff in there. Also, we want to thank Things from Another World for their support. They're running some great deals currently. Their evergreen deals are still going strong. A massive 40% off sales on comics, statues, toys, and merchandise. 30% off select pre-order manga titles. And 50% off Nick and Dent comics. So while you're on our website and on that sponsors page, you scroll down, you'll see a couple images. If you click on those, I'll take you to Things from Another World's website. That lets them know that we sent you their way, and you ought to take advantage of some of these deals. They're really good.
Yes, they are.
Alrighty. For this week, I'm going to have to hand the baton over to Mike because this was Mike's suggestion for a topic. So without further ado, here's Mike.
Yeah, because it was such an oddly organic way to come up with a topic. The story for coming up with this topic was, well, we had talked last time about that we had needed to come up with a topic for this week, and so I said, all right, we'll think of something. And so the other day I was honestly driving home from work listening to another podcast, because I listen to a lot of podcasts because I have a long commute to and from work. And they started talking about the upcoming Ghost in the Shell movie. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. Because that started out, not only was it a fairly long-running anime series, it also started out as an animated movie. And I was like, hey, we could talk about animated movies. And so I instantly messaged the boys and said, hey, let's talk about animated movies. And they said, okay. And so we've come up with a handful of some of our favorite animated movies to talk about. Yay! Like I said, perfectly normal way to come up with a podcast topic. But so my first one is actually, I don't know, to me it feels like a mundane choice. But it was one that when it came out, I really enjoyed. And it was really pretty popular, so I'm going to list Shrek as my first choice. It is just, honestly, this was kind of in the time frame where animated movies people were starting to write them kind of not just for the kids. So they were starting to figure out how to find subtle ways to slip stuff in for the grown-ups. And Shrek did it in a way, because it was like the beginning of that movement, it's not always very subtle. So they were still sort of getting the hang of slipping the jokes in for the grown-ups. I mean, some of the stuff is just flat out obviously for the grown-ups. You almost have to explain stuff to your kid when they're watching it. But it was also genuinely funny. It was almost as if, get this, it was almost as if they took this crazy ass idea for a fairy tale and handed the script over to a couple of like really funny comedians to make it funny. And it was almost like that, kind of, sort of like that. And it friggin' worked. it was a hilarious movie. And it was really, I mean, if you're into fantasy at all, it was a really cool fantasy-esque, fairy tale-esque type story. And it was funny as hell for the grown-ups. And the kids love it because it's just because you've got people talking in funny voices. And you've got some butt kicking, you've got a princess, you've got a fairy godmother, you've got a dragon. Holy cow, do you have a dragon? And this really funny / obnoxious talking donkey who does everything he can to steal the show. And handing that role to Eddie Murphy was friggin' genius.
Yep.
Because if anybody's going to steal a show, Eddie Murphy can do it. On command, pretty much. And it honestly probably completely revitalized his career for him as well. But I digress there. So, I mean, this is... I forgot to look up when this movie came out. It was more than 10 years ago. And this is honestly like the newest one on my list. But it's just kind of always been one of my favorites.
I enjoy the heck out of it.
It even spawned a couple of pretty good sequels. They didn't stop with just a couple, of course, but that's the way it usually works.
Right.
But like the second one was actually pretty good too.
I thought Shrek was great fun. And the story of Mike Myers deciding he didn't like the recording he did, so he went and redid the voice as to what you hear now with the Scottish brogue for the character, I thought was amazing. And this also was a fun movie because it had a twist in it, which was really not expected, but it fit the story so well.
Right, it worked. It just worked. Absolutely.
That's a great choice, Mike.
Yep, that's an awesome one.
Got to start this thing off good, right? It was my idea.
There you go. There you go.
Yep, you're under the gun, son.
All right.
Woo-hoo.
Who's next?
What you have, Thomas?
For my first choice, I saw a long time ago back on cable and blew me away. And unfortunately, it was a movie that never made it on to DVD until within the last 10 or 15 years, if I'm not mistaken. Great soundtrack, great cast, and it's called Heavy Metal.
You really never saw that until a couple of years ago? Oh shit!
No. I saw it on cable during the 80s.
Oh, all right.
I was talking about it never made to DVD until.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the only way you can find it on DVD was if it was actually bootleg, but it was like within late 90s, early 2000s that it actually made it on DVD, and I think there may have been some legal issues there.
Yeah, because I remember having it on VHS.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I knew it was on VHS, but it seemed like there was a long time before it made it on DVD, and that was a no-brainer that it should have been on DVD.
Oh, sure.
But I love the different stories, the different art styles, because obviously because they were done by different art studios, but just a nice mixture of sci-fi, fantasy, horror, which was just like the magazine. Mm-hmm. And some of these were literally taken from the magazine, and some were original stories, if I'm not mistaken. And it's funny because I had this this was the first thing that popped in my head when you came up with this topic. But maybe an hour and a half before we started recording, one of the network channels was actually showing it, so I had to watch it.
Well, that's just cool.
It's just the timing was just incredible, and it was just as good as I remembered.
It had some of the funniest stuff in it. Mm-hmm. Some of the funniest stories.
It was a nice mixture of everything. There was action, there was humor, there was horror. Obviously, it just it was awesome. Uh,
Yep,
I,
that's
I
it
I
without a
was I, I was sitting here watching it, going, which one is my favorite story? And I couldn't pick one.
There's
I
too many
really
good
could.
ones.
Yeah,
Yep, it's a hell of a showcase.
yep,
Soundtrack's not half bad either.
yeah. The soundtrack's pretty good. Yep.
Did they ever make a second movie or not?
Yeah, there was one called Heavy Metal 2000 that came out in 2000. It was kind of more of the kind of like the Tarna story arc, except for the character was based off of Julie Strain, and I'm not sure how well that one
I
did.
don't
I had not
recall it being
watched.
very popular.
Yeah,
Is that the character Fact 2 or Fact that she played?
I'm not sure because I've not seen it, but
Because
I
her
just
husband at the time was involved with it, Kevin Eastman.
yeah. But I mean, there's some great names listed here as voice actors. I mean, obviously the one that pops out to you is John Candy, who does several voices in this. But you got John Vernon, Eugene Levy, Joe Flattery, Marilyn Lightstone. Just a great cast.
I think Harold Ramis was in it too.
Harold Ramis had a little bit part. Trying to see who else. Those were some of the bigger names. Yeah, that's my first choice.
Who was the artist for the main space story, the amusing space story?
Or with the Stoners? Oh god.
The captain of the ship that was such a bonehead.
Okay,
Oh,
that
Stern. You're talking about Stern.
yeah, Captain Stern.
Yes,
Yeah, that's Bernie Wrightson.
Bernie Wrightson, yeah.
And then the Den story was by
It's
Richard
Corbin,
Corbin.
right?
And then there's a couple of stories by Dan O'Bannon. He who also did Return of the Living Dead and God, what else has he done? Let me pull up real quick. Wrote Alien. Matter of fact, it was his screenplay. Blue Thunder, Life Force. So I mean, some very
Some stuff going on there in the 80s.
just in that one movie. So, what's your first pick, Les?
I kind of go back to what we were speaking earlier, music.
Okay.
And I became enamored with a recording artist when I first heard his music in Midnight Cowboy. And he returned and did a TV movie based on an album. He wrote the album and then they came and did a cartoon of it. The Point by Harry Nilsson. The story of a man reading a bedtime story to his son and preaching how we should be tolerant with other people, people that were different. Because it was the story of Oblio, the young boy in the land of Point who did not have a pointed head like everyone else. His was round shaped. And it's his trek when he is banished from the city to live on his own. And it's really well done. This is where you got the song, it was a popular song on the radio, Me and My Arrow, which was about Oblio and his dog named Arrow. You can find it on DVD, and to me, it's just great fun because you have all this nice, really well done music telling a story, which we've seen in other forms, Jesus Christ Superstar was a storytelling album, and Tommy was, and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat was a story told on an album. This one was then converted to being a cartoon, an animated movie, and I thought it was just a good listen. And there are times I'll just pull out the album, listen to it, or even pull out the DVD to make sure I enjoy every bit of it.
I need to track that down.
Yeah, I was not aware of this one. Sounds interesting, though. Definitely.
Yeah, because I've always liked Harry Nilsson.
Yeah, I knew you were a Nilsson fan. But
Yeah.
And it is in all ages, so.
Which is a little surprising.
Yes,
if
for
you know anything
some
about
of
Harry Nilsson.
Harry's work, yeah.
But, I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is he was a hell of a songwriter, too. I mean, he wrote a bunch of friggin' hits back in the day.
Yes.
A bunch. Stuff he recorded and stuff that got recorded by others.
cool. Mikey, what you got?
All right. I don't want to move too far away from the 70s here, so. This, for anybody who knows me, will not be that big a shock. Although it's kind of funny. But my next choice is going to be the animated Hobbit movie, which came out in like 76, 77, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, there are a lot of people, and it's funny because, I mean, I found this out and part of why, if you know me, this is not surprising, is because like I took like a graduate level course on Tolkien, and one of the things I was surprised to learn was that among like Tolkien scholars, the animated Hobbit movie is reviled, and I for one don't have a fucking clue as to why, because it's a nice little animated flick. I mean, it's not like super stellar animation, but it's good. It's good. It's Rankin and Bass. It's not fantastic, but it's good animation, and the story really follows along with the book pretty well. And it even pulls out, because one of the things, if you haven't read The Hobbit, Tolkien like wrote songs in the story, and the animated version of this thing, it pulls those out and it uses them well, I thought. And I'm not even a musical person. I don't like musicals. I love music. I like movies. I don't really like to combine them much. That's probably sounds weird, but it worked well in this story. And they're dumb little songs. I mean, Tolkien was not a songwriter. He had written some mediocre poetry early in his life. But I mean, what he could do was play with the language. And that's what he did in some of these songs, and they're really cool. And they're, like I said, I mean, there's not really anything wrong with the way it was put together. I like the thing. If you have watched the recent monstrosity of movies that Peter Jackson has put out, it's nothing like this. It's a total polar opposite. The animated, like I said, the animated Hobbit actually like follows the story in the book, which the Peter Jackson Hobbit follows something else, and we can talk about that sometime if anybody wants to, but it's a different type of thing. So I mean, I was really shocked when I found out that a lot of people, like scholars, don't like it. I was like, wow, that's weird, because I've always thought it was a really fun little movie. So it's one of my favorites.
I remember watching it, and it's been a long, long time since I've seen it. And I remember I remember the visuals being impressive, because I mean, it wasn't all just traditional animation. There was some other things going on, if I remember it correctly.
I wonder if you might be remembering the Ralph Bakshi stuff, which was not
That may
The
be
Hobbit.
that. Okay, that may be
That
why
was
I'm okay.
he took, well, I say he. he did a movie called The Lord of the Rings, which was like half of the Lord of the Rings series book thing. And then there was The Return of the King, which kind of covered the rest of it. But that I'm not even sure that Bakshi had a big hand in that. But yeah, what he did with, because there was, it's a bunch of war type visuals and stuff that was the Bakshi stuff that he did. That was kind of the really, it was like the drawn over photography type stuff.
Okay.
And I think that may be what you're thinking of. But yeah, this is the Hobbit is Rankin and Bass all the way.
Okay. All right. I stand corrected.
But yeah, no, that's actually fun. That's the Bakshi stuff is fun to watch. I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to call it really good, but it's at least interesting to see kind of a slightly different take on it. It's a really dark take on some of the Lord of the Rings stuff. Okay, Tom, you got another one?
My pick, I'm jumping forward in time to 1983, and when it came out, I was floored. I think it still holds up as well today as it did when it came out. And in a lot of people's minds, and I'm not going to mention, I'm sure there's one that's going to be screaming when he hears this pick, going yes. But some people say it's the definitive Batman film, and it's called Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. And this came out about a year into the animated series run, so we're using a lot of the same cast members. But just such a great story, and of course the look of the animated series. It's still admired to this day. Someone came up with a term, but I'm trying to remember what it was. It's like, it's because I saw a article recently saying we need to move away from steampunk and it be more like strat punk or something like that, or gotho punk, and it refers to Batman the Animated Series of the look of Gotham City, how it kind of, there's a little darkness to it, but it looks futuristic at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of like a really dark version of Art Deco.
I think that's what it's called. It's called Deco Punk or something like that, or Art Deco Punk, something like that.
Yeah, because I mean, then it was kind of a throwback to like the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ever, and this is totally off topic, but if you ever see the movie Metropolis,
yes,
which I think it was 1927, it's a German film. It's actually one of the most famous silent films there is. But the look of the city in that movie is very reminiscent of Gotham City and Batman the Animated Series.
Yep.
And so it kind of harkens back to that time frame. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. That's perfect. But it's a great story. Once again, nice combination of action and adventure and a little humor and all that. And just it's really kind of hard to argue that's the definitive Batman film.
It's got some mystery to it too. There is a twist to it, which I thought was effective.
Yep.
And something they also did in the Batman Beyond movie about the Joker. There was a twist in that one.
See, that's the great thing about a kind of a long form movie format is you can do twists. You can't do twists in a 20 to 24 minute half-hour TV episode. There's just not enough time to build anything with it.
Right.
But you can stretch it to 80 or 90 minutes and you can have some fun with the story.
That's a good choice, Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Batman animated series was phenomenal, because they could do stories and not necessarily rely on a comic book story. They came up with new stuff. which I
Yeah,
applaud.
yeah, they had the freedom to come up with new stuff with characters that everybody already knows, so you don't have to do a whole lot of character building, which is just like the perfect scenario for it. You can spend, I mean, if you've got 24 minutes to build your story, you can spend most of that on your story because you're not having to introduce the Joker every time, or the Riddler. You don't even have to introduce the Joker the first time. You can just move right in and say, okay, here's a Joker story.
Yep.
And you don't have to tell Bruce Wayne's story every time either.
Right, you're not having to retell that every third episode like they would do today with something else. So,
So what's your next pick, Les?
My next pick, I'm going with Ralph Bakshi. And in 1977, he released a movie that really stuck home with me because of the art that was done in the film, and that's Wizards. And the fact that you had silhouette action, live action, and you had cell animation, I thought was a great mixture. And I really enjoyed it. I took my brother to see it. He was, I want to say, close to 10 at the time, and I regretted it.
Not a kids movie.
Not a kid's movie. But he was at a point where he didn't see what was going on. He didn't realize everything that happened around him. So I didn't get busted for warping the poor boy. But I thought it was really good and well done. And Bakshi went on to do a lot more. And he had done stuff prior too, of course. But I thought this one was fun and well done.
Yeah, I saw that for the first time like a year or two ago. And I agree. I thought it was really good. It was another one that didn't get really great reviews, but I thought for what it was, I thought it worked really well. I thought it was, I viewed it as underrated.
I think it is, because I think the majority of people on a scale of 10, they're doing, oh, that's about a 6. But if you really take the time to watch it
And understand what you're
yes,
watching. Yeah, I agree.
and sit back and enjoy the art, it makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall seeing it, so I guess I need to. Not ringing a bell right now. I'm familiar with the title and all that, but I just don't
It's
think I've seen it.
it's one of those that when you watch it, you'll spot 4 or 5 images in it that you'll go, oh, that's what that's from, because they're just all over the place. They're just ubiquitous. There's four or
It's
five
true.
images from that movie that you'll look at that and go, oh, this is where that came from. Okay, but yeah, it's cool. It's kind of fantasy-esque type story, and it's good. Definitely worth checking out.
Alrighty.
Does that make it my turn?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm gonna pull another little shocker. This is people who know me and know how I feel about certain movie things will probably be a little surprised by my choice here. But I'm going to choose Fantasia.
What?
Yeah, I know. As much as I hate on Disney, it is simply impossible to ignore the artistry in this in Fantasia. You don't have to be a fan of classical music to enjoy it, but it doesn't hurt. And some of the stuff they do with the animation in that is it's just groundbreaking. And it's so, yeah, I mean, I can't. And it's actually a little bit of a tricky one because it's not. It's a sort of a collection of separate pieces, kind of like heavy metal, but not really, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
because it's done with classical music instead of some of the really fun music in heavy metal. But so it's one of those, and it's another one that they did. There's a 2000 version, because man, wasn't that the thing to do in the year 2000. So there's a Fantasia 2000, which is nowhere near as good, mainly because they made a big deal out of it. I think that was the difference, is that when the original came out, which, oh God, when was that? I didn't look it up. I want to say it was in the 30s. But yeah, it's this minimalist thing where it's just an orchestra and a bunch of animators.
Release date November 13th, 1940.
Oh, I was close. But yeah, they made a big deal and had guest stars and shit in the Fantasia 2000, and it just didn't work as well. And the animation wasn't. It just wasn't groundbreaking. Was the deal. The thing that makes Fantasia cool is that it's groundbreaking. There's a bunch of stuff in there that had never been done before, and it was all done to this awesome classical music, and it's very pretty. And I'm now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't watched it in too long. I need to stick that in sometime.
Word of advice to our listeners right now. Any title, especially a movie title, that puts the 2000 behind it, probably should avoid. Heavy Metal 2000, Fantasia 2000, Blues Brothers 2000, just stay away.
I'm gonna throw the corollary to that, the exception to that, Death Race 2000.
Okay.
Mainly because that shit came out back in the 70s and is a really wild movie. That's a 2000 movie. That is worth seeing, mainly because it was not made in or around 2000. But anyway.
I stand corrected, yes.
That's the lone exception right there.
And it was animated, but not by computers or by hand-drawn. It was animated that the people were constantly moving.
Yes, very quickly. Yeah, that's a different kind of animated movie, though.
Yes.
Alrighty, am I up again?
Sure.
Give it a shot.
Alright. Well, I wasn't sure if I was next or not. Another fun movie. I hadn't watched it in a while, and I would love to. And it's another wonderful cast, a nice little sentimental story, and it's Toy Story. That is the name of it. With Tom Hanks and Tim Allen and an awesome cast. I enjoyed the heck out of that film.
I can see why.
Yeah, see, that was another groundbreaking one, too. That was...
Mm-hmm.
Was that the first Pixar?
If it wasn't, it was pretty darn close.
Yeah, and it was the one that was the exploding type successful, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a landmark movie.
And they had successful sequels to that, too.
Mm-hmm.
Although Toy Story is a standalone, they were able to do other plots to bring back the characters and capture the imagination of people.
Yeah, but don't watch Toy Story 2000. Not worth it.
It was just a fun, entertaining little story that it literally was for all ages.
Yeah, totally.
Because the kids would like it, and of course the adults can kind of go a little nostalgic.
And there's also, like I was talking about with Shrek, there's
humor there that it will go over to kids' heads. Yes.
By then they'd gotten good at it.
Yeah.
Those guys, they were good at the subtle adult stuff by then.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great example of kind of what I was talking about. But anyway, not to pull the spotlight back on myself or anything.
No. You're right.
I know.
I was about to mention that, so that's fine. It got mentioned. There you go.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yep.
Les?
The third choice I've got is something that wasn't innovative, but they renovated it to top notch. And that was the animation and live action of Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
To me, they melded the two together so well that it totally worked. Totally. It was a fine cast, and to me, it was a really good plot based on a book, and they just pulled it off. I thought that it was, 2 hours long and thoroughly enjoyable. I don't remember me nodding off once in that movie. And for me not to nod off in a movie is hard to get through.
It's high praise.
It's high praise. But I loved it. The manic character, Roger, Eddie, played by, little help here, Bob Hoskins.
Yep.
Was a perfect fit for this because it had a feel of the Maltese Falcon, with Eddie had just lost his partner type feel to it.
Yep.
And I thought that was a good callback to a previous movie and book. So I thought the characters and even the dance numbers were great in that one.
Oh yeah, this is the movie for if you seeing an actor act against nothing, this is the movie. Bob Hoskins,
Yeah.
this is how it's done. This is how it should be done right here. So many people have tried and failed at that over the years since then. This is like the ultimate example of how it should work and how well it can be done.
Yes.
And we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that Christopher Lloyd was perfect as bad guy.
Oh, totally. Spoiler.
Spoiler.
For a movie that came out 30 some odd years ago.
Yep.
Was it 89? Was it 89?
Somewhere around there.
That was the 90s. But either way, that's where I'm going to say, okay, next.
Oh, I think I got one more. 1988. Trying to figure out how to preface this one. This is one that I don't know if a lot of people have heard of. I mean, people have probably heard of it, but it's essentially kind of the first anime movie I ever got exposed to, which, that given that it was in college, I don't know if that makes me weird or not, but it had been out a few years then. And it's one of those movies that kind of hits in my wheelhouse, which is probably why it always sat well with me. But it's called Vampire Hunter D. And it is not a terribly original story, but it's really well executed. It's really well drawn. It's a beautiful movie to watch. And it's kind of got the anime voiceover thing going, so it's a little twitchy in terms of dialogue, but I mean it's almost in like a speed racer type way. I mean it's really kind of twitchy, but it's so pretty and it's so dark. Essentially, D is this guy. It turns out you learn throughout the course of it that he's like a half vampire type, and he just kind of rides into this town one day, and there's this big bad vampire there who has just recently taken over the town, and so he ends up having to fight this guy, and it's like I said, like the last half hour of this hour and a half movie is just this battle scene, this fight scene between D and several of the people in the bad guy's castle, and so it's basically a bunch of vampires tearing each other apart, and it's just really cool, and I've always really liked it. I'm not going to say it's like a masterpiece, but it's one of those really cool movies that I like.
It's one of those that is a good starting point for anime, to me. There's a lot of anime out there, but to me that was one of the best starting points to appreciate anime.
Well, lucky then.
I think so, because from there I was able to take in some other stuff, and I don't watch much anime, but Vampire D was a catching point for me.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I don't do a lot of anime too, but I've seen that.
It's entirely possible that would be my fault.
Yeah, it might have been. Okay. I do have one more choice. When they first announced that they were doing this movie, I was so excited because I loved the original material. And when it came out, I was just blown away because it hit all the right notes, especially from nostalgia. And it was basically due to the art. And this is Darwin Cook's The New Frontier, which the story was based off in the 50s, and this is a DC. If you're not familiar with the title, the story focused on Hal Jordan to a certain extent, but there was literally a cast of thousands. It's if you have any love for the Silver Age or any love for Darwin Cook, this is the movie you need to watch, because if you have not already, because it's a great film.
Yep, it is.
What was that? I'm sorry.
No, that's all I was saying, was it is. I agree.
It's I'm trying to think of the Monty Python music now.
It's
the New Frontier was so strong in book form, and the film captured that. I've reread New Frontier several times, and I'm still amazed at the feel that the book has. They convey it onto the film and do it quite well.
Yep.
It was almost, to me, it was kind of reminiscent of Marvel's, by Marvel Comics, because you had all of a sudden you had superheroes in the world. And I thought that was a different version of it and effective.
Agreed. I think it's one of Darwin's better, not better, how do I say this? Better projects that was more mainstream. Let's say it that way, I guess.
Yes.
Because his stuff was the Parker stories he did were great too. But that's probably not as well known as this and some of the other things that he's done. So.
Good choice.
Thank you. You got one? You got another one there, Les?
Oh, I've been around so long. Animated movies are my go-tos.
Okay.
And there are so many out there. You mentioned Disney earlier. There's a slew there. But I'm going to a movie by Aardman. And this was the Academy Award winner for 2006 Best Animated Feature Film. Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. You had such good humor in this, and it is all ages. You have characters that you will not forget, and you have some really fine voice actors in this too. I was kind of surprised, recalling some of the people that were in it. Helena Bonham Carter has a part. Ray Fiennes has a part. So it's just kind of fun to watch this, and the animation itself is, correct me if I'm wrong, it is not stop action, but it gives you the feel of stop action. And as a result, it's spot on. And the Aardman has done so many good films like Chicken Run, and, well, of course, there's always the Wallace and Gromit shorts that they've done. Shaun the Sheep is one of theirs. So if you've got kids, this is a series you can sit down and laugh with them, along with them, and they'll enjoy every minute of it.
I almost put Chicken Run on my list. I really came close. Not that it's not on my list, but I mean, this is far from a comprehensive list. This is the list we can do and still have a reasonably length show.
Yeah, because we could go till the wee hours.
Oh Lord.
Going over more and more movies.
Easily.
Whee! Yeah, but we don't want to do that.
Nah. Gotta keep them coming back for more, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause we can always do a follow-up to this.
We can.
Mm-hmm.
We probably even will.
You never know.
Sooner than
Anything's
you
possible.
think.
Okay, that was a great list. It's hard to argue any of those, really.
No, I think we hit spot on.
Yep.
Okay, any final thoughts before we take a little break?
I'll throw an animated movie shout out to the Star Wars prequels. I thought it was really cool how they had those wooden people in front of all those beautiful animated backgrounds.
Whoa.
Alrighty then. With that, we're taking a quick break and we'll be back with our weekly picks. And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks, and leading off is Mike.
I'm leading off. And this week, I got for my first pick anyway, I got a Dark Horse book. This is Baltimore, The Red Kingdom, number 2. Written by Mike Mignola and drawn by Peter Bergting. And if you are not aware, Lord Baltimore is the main character here, and he is a monster hunter set in World War I-ish Europe. And also, this particular arc is intended to be the final arc for Lord Baltimore. So, one way or another, shit's going down. And if the previous arcs have been any indication, it's going to be quite a gruesome battle. So, this is your chance to get on it. Check out this very dark, very cool series.
Very cool.
That's the title that you spoke of earlier, right?
Yes, yeah, that was my Baltimore. Was this? Which I believe this is. Essentially, I think this is volume. This is going to be volume 9 when it's collected. I think it's 8 or 9.
Wow.
I think it's 9. I'm a little behind the times. I've kept up with some of them otherwise, but as far as the trades go, I just picked up number 3 and read it, and it's very cool, of course. Very dark, very gruesome, very cool, very Mignola.
Cool. Alrighty, Les.
Okay, I'm leading off for second place. I'm going to promote Spook House number 5. Albatross Funny Books with Eric Powell as the writer, Steve Mannion and Drew Roush as the artist. And the liner they give on it is all I can really say, and that's scary stories for kids. They are all done with humor, so it's not going to be something that will send your kids into a fit, but the past issues have been an easy read and an amusing one. So that's what I'm gonna recommend.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to check this one out. You've been talking about it a lot, so
Yep.
you've
Dun,
got,
dun,
you've got
dun.
me curious now.
Alrighty. Excuse me, for my first choice, has me choked up, is from Action Lab, their Danger Zone imprint, is Dollface St. Patrick's Day Special. Written by Dan Mendoza with art by Marcelo Trome. And you're not familiar with the premise of Dollface. It is the spirit of a vampire hunter, if I'm not mistaken, right, Mikey?
Witch Hunter.
Witch hunter. Okay, witch hunter that's trapped in a ball-jointed doll, and so walking around today, modern day, and in this special, Lila gets to battle a leprechaun, of course, because it's St. Patrick's Day. This has been kind of interesting. I like the premise of the book. The first issue was interesting, but this ought to be fun. I expect this. I expect the series to be really a fun, entertaining, but maybe a little bloody series.
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Alrighty, Mikey, you're up again.
I'm up again. My second book is an IDW book. It is Daveocracy number 2. If you're not familiar with the Dave series, Ryan Ferrier writes it, Valentino Ramon draws it, and it's freaking hilarious. Go get it. This arc, the Daveocracy arc, is the third arc, and I believe it is going to be the final arc. I believe I saw Ryan Ferrier say that somewhere not long ago. But this is the one where Dave, who was at the beginning of the first arc a total loser, who's completely out of his element, and then as throughout the course of that arc we find out that his element was that he's actually a combat robot. So he kicks some ass at the end. And then there's other alien stuff happens in our second arc. I'm not spoiling anything. This has been out a while. People go get it, like I said, if you haven't read it. This third arc, Dave is running for president, and I'm going to just let that speak for itself. So this series is a ton of fun, so definitely go get it. Check it out. If you like fun, this is the series for you.
It really is, yeah. Go back and get the collecteds of the first two. Yeah, it's just a great sit down and laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Les, you're up again.
I don't know how to present this one. Action Labs is coming out with a book called Amerikarate, #1. Brockton McKinney and Corey Coleman are the writers, with art by Devin Roth. And just looking at their write-up for it makes you want to do the voice of a trailer announcer at a movie, because it is based on the greatest 80s action movies, such as Bloodsport, Gymkhana, Rambo, Commando, and Kickboxer. And in this, it's a story of an American's fight to karate fight with karate for America and karate. It's going to be absurd, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And just because of that, I'm looking forward to this one.
That is one hell of a tagline. No
Yes.
question.
Alrighty. Yeah, that one looks kind of interesting. Yeah, that'd be fun. Nice little parody of 80s film, which would be right down Mike's alley since he doesn't like 80s film.
Right. 80s films is self-parodying anyway, so. and not really in a good way, but I digress.
That's okay. It's all right. All right. For my next pick, it's Superman number 18. Obviously, this is DC Comics. Written by Peter Tomasi with art by Patrick Gleason. And this is the first installment of the Superman Reborn story arc. And for those who've not been keeping up with what's been going on in the Super books, just before Rebirth, the New 52 Superman had died. And so we've been dealing with Superman from pre-Flashpoint as far as we know. But not only we've been dealing with this, we've been dealing with a Clark Kent who's been wandering around. These are two different people, so we're not sure what's going on there. And then we may start getting some answers not only to all of this, but a comment that a mysterious Mr. Oz, if you've been keeping up with stuff that's been going on in Rebirth, you probably know something about Mr. Oz, had said, and the quote is, "You and your family are not what you believe, and neither was the fallen Superman." So we're almost a year into Rebirth, and we'll start getting some answers to some of the questions. Now we'll definitely have more when the whole Benton event comes up starting in April. But maybe we start getting some answers with what's going on with the Super family, and I'm excited about this. I'm curious to see what we're about to find out.
It would be great that they start tying things together a little more, like they plan on in this book, because maybe that will, and I'm sure, obviously, it will come to the other titles and affect them.
Well, I mean, they said this was going to be a 2-year process on some of this, so believe it or not, we're not even a year into Rebirth. Rebirth started in June, and as we're recording, we're at the end of February. So, yeah, it's about time we start answering some questions, which more than likely will lead to other questions, which we won't get the answers for that for
a while.
Until sometime. Yeah, a while.
Right, and the next event, and
Yeah.
That's how it works. I mean, and they have to drag some stuff out because otherwise they don't have a story.
Well, and you use the term event, and yeah, I guess to a degree it is kind of an event, but with this is in this case it's only tying into the Superman book, so it's not really affecting the rest of the universe just yet. And we'll get to that point. We will. There will be a big event in DC books that will affect all of them, especially if we're going to be dealing with the fact that they find out what has been going on these last several years and who's responsible and all that. But I think that's still a ways away.
Right, and Superman is such an integral part of the DC universe that it'll affect a lot of stuff, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's the way it should be.
Alrighty. Any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I have an honorable mention.
Okay.
I promised that I wouldn't let this go until the end, and now we're at the end. Nailbiter number 30 comes out this week, and this is the end. And I'm happy, sad. I'm happy to get to see how it ends, and I'm sad that it's actually going to be over after this. So.
Talking about waiting to get all the questions answered. We're about to get some questions answered.
I'm open. It would be really cruel of them to not answer some questions at this point.
Right.
As long as they don't do like The Sopranos did and have someone walk into the diner and you don't know what happened, fade to black.
Either that or Patrick Duffy's going to be in the shower or something. I don't know.
Or he's going to reprise his role from Atlantis.
That would be interesting.
Cool. Les, you got an honorable mention this week?
Maybe just Paper Girls number 12. Kind of looking forward to this because they're at the beginning of their third arc. They're in the second issue of their third arc, so I think their tagline was "Growing up can be deadly."
Uh-oh.
So we'll see how that turns around.
That's not dramatic at all, is it?
No.
Alrighty. I have an honorable mention as well, and it's from Marvel. And it is Guardians of the Galaxy by Jim Valentino Omnibus. And this actually collects Guardians of the Galaxy 1 through 29 and annuals 1 and 2. Marvel Superheroes number 18, which was actually the first appearance of Guardians of the Galaxy back in 1967. And then material from Fantastic Four Annual 24, for Annual 16, and Silver Surfer Annual 4. This is collecting Jim Valentino's run, obviously, from the early 90s. And this is not... If you're... All you know of the Guardians of the Galaxies are the lineup that's been showing up in the movies, and I'm talking about Star-Lord, Groot, and Raccoon and all of them. This is not them. This was the original team that appeared in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and this was a team that was actually based in the 31st century. And I'm talking about the likes of Vance Astro, Starhawk, Nikki, Charlie 27, Martinex, and one that y'all may know, Yondu, who does show up in the Guardians of the Galaxy film. I remember getting these when they were coming out, and these were nice little stories, and Valentino's art is awesome, of course. So, nice little shout out. I'm kind of glad that they're doing this, kind of promote a little bit of the other team. It's easy to forget this lineup when the general public knows the ones from the movies, and that's the ones that are kind of focused on. Granted, the lineup more or less has been around for the last 10, 15, maybe 20, well, maybe 20 years, maybe pushing it, but at least 15 years. So, this has been kind of the lineup, and of course that's what they use for the movie, so that's what the general public knows. So it's nice that they're showing a little love to the previous team.
Yep, cool.
That is cool.
Alrighty. Any special shout-outs?
No, don't think so. Not for me.
Okay. Les?
I got nothing.
Okay. I do have one special shout-out. This past week, I reconnected with a couple of guys that I have not talked to in about 10 years. It's one of the good things about social media. There's a lot of bad things out there about it, but there's some good things. You can make some new friends, and you can reconnect with some old ones. And these are twin brothers, Barry and Terry Phillips. They used to run a used bookstore that I was getting my comics from during the 90s and early 2000s. And they closed their store down about 10 years ago. But I had finally found them and reconnected with them, and it's kind of cool to see where they're at. And one of them's actually an aspiring script writer. So shout out to Barry and Terry. It's great to be in contact with you again, and hope to talk to them more. These guys, every Wednesday I would go in, pick up my stuff, and I would literally close the store talking to them. Not necessarily comics, although we did a little bit, because I was kind of keeping them up to date with what was going on, but they were lovers of classic movies. And at this time, I was starting to get into classic movies. So it was great to be able to talk to other people about these movies. And of course, they were fans of mysteries and noirs. And so it was always a fun time every Wednesday go in and kind of chat with them for a while.
Yeah, what was the name of that store? I remember you telling me about this back in the day.
Booktree.
Booktree, that's right. Yeah, I remember. I think you even dragged me in there once.
Yeah, probably once or twice. For a small store, they had a ton of books.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally ceiling to floor of books.
This was before I met you, Thomas, but I remember going in there too.
Yeah.
And they never steered me wrong about a mystery novel.
Nope. They were big on mysteries. They love mysteries. Yeah, I mean I was thinking about this the other night. I was thinking about what had happened if they had not closed, and if they had never closed, the fellowship would never existed. Because they closed, I moved over to Comic Book Craze, and that's where I met Les, and then that's where all this came from. So I guess I owe them a little bit of gratitude for.
To an extent, all three of us do.
Yeah.
You're kind of the Jar Jar Binks, aren't you?
Oh, that was uncalled for. Jeez, fighting words right there.
Mm. You'll get yours, man. You'll get yours.
Quite possibly tomorrow.
I can hear the buzz coming this way.
So, with that, let's do our usual shout-outs. First off, Manny the Murderer for the awesome music that we use for our podcast every week. Great musicians, great group of guys. Thank you very much. Go check out their page. We'll have a link in our show notes. And also, if you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on the podcast tab, there will be their logo, and that will take you to their page as well. Second of all, shout out to Potter and Family, hashtag Potter and Family on Twitter, the podcast family on Twitter that shares links. They've been spreading the word about us, the fellowship, and we appreciate that, and we've been returning the love. We've been doing the best we can, Mikey and I have. So go check it out. You can just go on to Twitter and do a search, hashtag Pardon Family, and you can find any kind of podcast that you might be interested in. It's out there. Just go check it out. And finally, you, dear listener, shout out to you. Thank you for downloading this episode and other episodes. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. We're always wanting your feedback. If you have any comments, suggestions, questions, we're always open. We're always wanting to hear from you. And the best way to do that is you can email us. Email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, click on our About Us tab, and there's a form there that you can fill out. Or you can contact us through social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks, one word. Go like us there, and you can send us a message, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. You can also follow us on Twitter. We're obviously on Twitter, at Fellowship Geeks. Go ahead and like us there, and just do a shout out. Say, hey, how's it going? Like the show. And of course we'll say, hey, thank you. Thank you for listening. Mikey has his own Twitter page, at Mikey Geek. And I have one as well, at TomTC Geek. If you like, go ahead and follow us there and do a shout out if you want to. Just say, hey, and we'll respond with, "Hey, how's it going?"
You make us sound like the brothers on Great White North.
We still need to make up that fake Les Webster Twitter account. And wherever you download our podcast, whether it's iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or if you listen to us on YouTube, it would be much appreciated if you rate us, whether it's a star system or thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. We would appreciate that. And if you had an additional couple of minutes, feel free to write a review. It would be greatly appreciated.
Yep.
Question of the week? Do we have one?
Oh, damn.
What, you weren't thinking of one while I did all this? Come on, man.
I mean, the obvious is, what's your favorite animated movie?
Right.
That's the obvious.
Obvious one.
Sorry I didn't come up with something less obvious.
That's okay. Alrighty. I guess. And speaking of questions, we are still accepting questions for future episodes. If you have a question that you would like to, for us to answer on a podcast, feel free to send it to us in any of the previously mentioned forms of communication, and we may use it. We've gotten a couple so far. They've been pretty good, and we appreciate that. So please send them, and
we want to do this
may
soon,
use them.
So,
yeah, we want to do this
soon.
soon.
And we will actually say
fun.
your name out loud on the podcast if you give it to us.
There you go.
If you don't give us your name, we can't say it out loud. We can shout random names if you want, but it's kind of weird. Instead
of okay to print, and say okay, it's okay to say.
Yeah. Well, sure. The audio version of okay to print. Absolutely.
There you go.
We'll go with
that. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think we nailed it again.
Okay.
You're getting good at this. Jeez.
It's only taken me a while. That's all right.
52 episodes.
Yeah, 52. Yep. Any final thoughts? Anything else before we sign off?
No, just thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We greatly appreciate it. We love you guys. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,